NBA Youngboy's sister just turned 29 years old, and the life she is living today is nothing short of embarrassing. She has spent years attaching herself to the men closest to her brother, his friends, his artists, the people he trusted most, and every single time, those situations ended in chaos, broken loyalty, and public embarrassment that rippled all the way back to one of the biggest names in hip-hop. No spotlight, no career, no legacy of her own, just a trail of situations that keep resurfacing every time someone digs into the story behind NBA Youngboy's most painful betrayals. Stay locked in because we are going deep into everything that happened and exactly how it changed Youngboy's world forever. But real quick, if you're serious about winning in the rap game, I put everything I know into one ebook. I'm talking how to actually grow an audience from zero, how to get labels reaching out to you with deals, and even how to get paid in this industry without ever touching a mic. And nah, it's not too late. People love to say the wave passed. It didn't. New artists and new hustlers are blowing up every single day, and the ones eating are the ones who started now instead of waiting. It's only $39. That's a few cups of coffee for a blueprint that can change how you move in this game forever. Links in the description bio. Go grab it, then let's get back to the video. Yo, what's good, fam? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications, because we bring you the stories that actually matter in hip-hop. And today, we are going deep, real deep. We are talking about T. Lee Galdin, born January 15th, 1997, in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. NBA Youngboy's older sister and one of the most quietly significant figures in the entire story of his career, without ever stepping behind a microphone or seeking public attention on purpose. For most of Youngboy's early career, T. Lee was exactly what most rap superstars' family members are, invisible to the public. She was not performing. She was not doing interviews. She was not running businesses in her brother's name or posting lifestyle content for clout. She was simply living her life outside the scope of the spotlight that had started consuming everything around her brother from the moment he began rapping seriously. And that should have kept her name out of the conversation entirely, except it did not. Over time, without inserting herself into any public narratives, her name kept appearing in interviews that circulated for years, in situations that fundamentally altered some of Youngboy's most important personal relationships. Once people started connecting the dots, the curiosity became impossible to ignore. And what they found painted a picture that fans have been talking about ever since. To understand any of this fully, you have to understand what NBA Youngboy built in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and how he built it. Youngboy never broke again. Born Kentrell Deshaun Galdin on October 20th, 1999, came up in one of the toughest environments in America. Baton Rouge is not a city that gives anything away for free, and Youngboy came from a part of that city that made his ambition that much more remarkable. He started releasing music while he was still a teenager, and the raw honesty in his voice connected with people immediately. He was not performing pain, he was living it and turning it into art in real time. By his late teens, he was already one of the most streamed artists in the entire country, putting up numbers that most established rappers with major label resources could not match. He did all of that while maintaining an extremely tight inner circle. Loyalty was not just a word Youngboy threw around in interviews. It was the foundation that everything in his career and his personal life was built on. The people closest to him, the ones who rolled with him from the beginning, occupied a completely different level of trust than anyone else. That made personal relationships sacred in his world. And it meant that anything that disrupted those relationships hit differently than it would for most artists. One of the relationships that mattered most during Youngboy's early rise was his connection to another Baton Rouge rapper named G Money, real name Rashad Burton. G Money was someone who came up in the same environment, moving through the same circles, building his own following in Louisiana while Youngboy was building his. The two were viewed publicly as allies, as two young Baton Rouge artists both getting their names known at the same time. G Money had legitimate talent and a genuine following in Louisiana. Songs like Jack Who, and a consistent output that kept him relevant on the street level. The closeness between him and Youngboy was not just something the public imagined. It was something both of them acknowledged. They moved in the same spaces, shared the same city, and for a period were very much seen as representatives of the same movement out of Baton Rouge. That shared identity made what happened next hit that much harder, because when things fell apart between them, it was not a stranger that Youngboy was losing. It was somebody he actually knew. But here's where it gets real. In 2017, G Money released a song that included derogatory lyrics directly about NBA Youngboy's sister. Not a vague diss, not some coded industry slander. He put out music disrespecting T. Lee by name and attached it to the street for everyone to hear. Youngboy responded publicly on social media, and from that point forward, the situation escalated with a velocity that left no room for repair. 1 month before his death, G Money sat down with Say Cheese TV and confirmed what everyone in Baton Rouge already knew, that Youngboy had gotten the big head after his success, that the drama involving Youngboy's sister was a major reason they would never make music together, and that the relationship between the two camps was beyond saving. He said it plainly and without hesitation. G Money was shot and killed on September 10, 2017, 1 month after that interview aired. An associate of NBA Youngboys was later indicted for the shooting. The arrest warrant confirmed it directly. The beef that led to G Money's death started when he put out music disrespecting Youngboy's sister. Youngboy beefed with G Money over what he did to his sister's name, and that beef ended in one of the most tragic and defining moments in Baton Rouge rap history. The NBA versus TBG rivalry became one of the defining chapters in Baton Rouge rap history, not just because of the music or the street politics involved, but because of how deeply personal its origins were. This was not a beef that started over money or features or industry positioning. It started because someone took aim at Youngboy's family. Once Youngboy responded to G Money's song publicly, the back and forth escalated with a speed that could not be contained. Both camps started taking shots at each other online. The tension moved from personal grievance into something that carried real consequences neither side could walk back from. In the days leading up to G Money's death, both men were posting about each other publicly, escalating a dangerous tension that detectives noted had been building in real time. The arrest warrant that eventually charged an NBA associate with G Money's shooting confirmed it on record. The origins of this beef were rooted in what happened with Youngboy's sister. Detectives wrote that when G Money was killed, members of the NBA group were immediately developed as suspects due to the ongoing conflict between the two camps. The tragedy of September 10, 2017 was the violent conclusion to a conflict that started the moment G Money made the decision to put T. Lee's name in his music. Years later, that timeline remains one of the most referenced and most sobering in the history of Louisiana rap. It also established something important about NBA Youngboy that his fan base understood clearly from that point forward. When you cross his family, the beef is not a social media argument. It is something else entirely. Now let's move forward in time, because the story does not end there. Several years into Youngboy's dominance, after he had built Never Broke Again into one of the most recognizable independent labels in hip-hop, a young rapper named P. Youngjoy emerged as one of the most heavily promoted artists in that organization. Real name Cameron McClay, born September 24, 2004 in Plaquemine, Louisiana. P. Youngjoy was barely a teenager when he first started gaining attention. He released EPs as early as 2019 and broke through more visibly in 2020 with the single I'm On from his mixtape Demons Everywhere I Go. That record caught Youngboy's attention, and from there, P. Youngjoy's trajectory inside Never Broke Again took off. Youngboy invested real energy in his development, treating him with a level of mentorship and promotion that signaled genuine belief in the younger artist's potential. P. Youngjoy was not just another name on the roster. He was being positioned as someone who could carry real weight for the label going forward. That kind of co-signing from Youngboy is not a small thing. When you have one of the most streamed artists in America putting his name behind you and actively including you in his world, doors open that would otherwise stay shut. P. Youngjoy had access to all of that, and it came through a relationship that was as personal as it was professional. But here's where it gets complicated again. T. Lee Golden and P. Youngjoy became romantically involved. Their relationship eventually became public knowledge, and the two went on to have a child together, making the connection between them undeniable and permanent. When word got out, fans immediately recognized the parallel. Here was another situation where someone deep inside Youngboy's world, not an outsider, not someone from a rival camp, but someone he personally signed, personally mentored, and personally promoted, had gotten romantically involved with his sister and fathered a child with her. Youngboy did not hide how he felt about it. The fallout was real. P. Youngjin's position inside Never Broke Again shifted visibly. The active promotion, the cosigns, the energy that had characterized the early phase of that relationship, all of it cooled down. Youngboy beefed with P. Youngin over what happened with his sister, and anyone paying attention to the Never Broke Again camp at that time could feel it. The situation inside the label became one of the most talked about internal conflicts in Youngboy's history, precisely because it involved someone he had personally brought into his world and chosen to invest in. The story of P. Youngjin took an even darker turn in December of 2024, when reports began surfacing online that the young rapper had passed away. The news spread rapidly, with major rap media accounts sharing images of P. Youngjin alongside NBA Youngboy and reporting on the tragic development. NBA Youngboy's associate Lil Dump went on live and made comments that added fuel to the already intense online reaction. And in one of the most heartbreaking moments connected to this entire story, T. Lee Golden, P. Youngjin's baby mother, shared a video story of him holding their child, a moment that hit different than anything else posted that day. She was not a celebrity, not a content creator, not someone with a public platform built around her brother's name. She was a mother posting a video of her child's father, and the weight of that image said everything that words could not. Whatever had transpired between P. Youngjin and Youngboy's camp, whatever tension had existed between them because of the relationship with T. Lee, all of it got swallowed by the grief of that moment. Now let me break this down for y'all, because the parallel between these two situations is the most significant thing about T. Lee's story and why it refuses to go away. In the G Money situation, a man who had once been viewed as an ally of Youngboy's put out music disrespecting his sister, and that disrespect triggered a beef that ended in death and left a permanent scar on Baton Rouge rap history. In the P. Youngjin situation, a man who was literally signed to Youngboy's label, someone he personally vouched for, personally invested in, personally brought up inside his organization, became romantically involved with that same sister and had a child with her. And that situation triggered another round of conflict and public fallout that damaged one of the most promising artist relationships inside Never Broke Again. Two different men, two different time periods, two completely different contexts in Youngboy's career. And in both cases, T. Lee was at the center of a situation that her brother beefed over directly and personally. That pattern is not something fans imagined or manufactured online for the sake of content. It is documented. It is on record. It is confirmed in arrest warrants, in interviews, and the publicly visible changes inside Youngboy's camp. And it is why the story keeps getting told every time someone goes looking for the roots of Youngboy's most significant personal conflicts. The two situations together tell a story about what happens when the private and the professional collide repeatedly in the same person's life, and how those collisions never stay private for long when that person is one of the most watched rappers in the world. So check it. Once the internet caught on to this narrative, the content machine kicked into overdrive. YouTube channels and TikTok creators began packaging years of history, interviews, and documented events into dramatic videos built around titles that framed T. Lee's life as a cautionary tale. Those videos generated massive view counts because the formula worked exactly as the algorithm rewards it to work. Real underlying drama with enough documented history to sustain a compelling story, wrapped in the most attention-grabbing packaging possible. The problem is that as these videos multiplied and competed for views, the line between documented fact and internet exaggeration became harder to track. Some creators stuck closely to what was verifiable. Others blurred liberally into rumor and speculation that went well beyond the actual record. And once a story reaches that level of viral velocity, separating the real from the manufactured becomes almost impossible, because the sensational version always travels further than the accurate one. What is actually documented is dramatic enough on its own. G Money released a song disrespecting Youngboy's sister. Youngboy beefed with him over it. That beef is confirmed in arrest warrants, in interviews, in police documentation, and in the tragic events of September 10, 2017. P. Youngjin became romantically involved with T. Lee, fathered a child with her, and Youngboy beefed with him over it too. And the cool down of their professional relationship inside Never Broke Again was visible to anyone following the label at that time. P. Youngjin's reported death in late 2024 added a layer of tragedy to that chapter that no one anticipated. And the image of T. Lee posting a video of him holding their child in the aftermath was one of the most quietly devastating moments connected to this entire story. Through all of it, the facts remain clear. This was not internet speculation built on nothing. These were real situations, real beefs, real consequences, documented in real time. And T. Lee sat at the center of all of it without ever seeking the spotlight that found her. As for T. Lee herself, she largely maintains a low public profile, going by simply T. Lee on social media, occasionally posting and supporting her brother without making headlines on her own terms. She has a son named Riley from an earlier relationship, and she is also the mother of P. Youngjin's child. 2 kids, 2 chapters of her personal life that the internet has examined under a microscope she never asked for. She has spoken about her interest in music, having sung in church growing up and building a small catalog of her own original work. She has shown up for Youngboy publicly, supporting him through legal battles and attending events connected to his career. But she is not building a brand around the controversies attached to her name. She moves quietly through a life that the internet has made far louder than she ever intended. And in a strange way, that quiet is what keeps people so interested. She does not respond to the narrative. She does not give interviews addressing it. She simply exists, and the internet fills in the rest with whatever version of her story gets the most clicks. Meanwhile, her name keeps coming up in every major conversation about the men who shaped NBA Youngboy's most defining beefs. That is a specific kind of notoriety, the kind you never asked for and cannot fully escape. And all of this connects back to something that has been a defining theme throughout NBA Youngboy's entire career: his relationship with loyalty. Listen to his music closely enough, and you will find that theme running through almost everything he has ever recorded. Loyalty, betrayal, trust, and the pain of watching people you believed in reveal themselves to be something other than what you thought they were. These are not just artistic themes for Youngboy. They are reflections of real experiences that shaped him from childhood through adulthood. He has spoken in interviews about the difficulty of knowing who to trust, about the way success has a way of changing people around you, about the experience of watching relationships that felt unbreakable fall apart in ways that cut to the bone. His music has always been the place where those experiences get processed publicly, and fans who have listened closely can hear the weight of these specific situations in the way he talks about friendship, about family, about the price of letting people into his world. For someone who built his entire identity around keeping real people close and keeping loyalty sacred, situations that struck at the heart of that code, situations involving his own sister and the men he was supposed to be able to trust, hit in a way that the average person simply cannot fully appreciate from the outside. Real talk, these were not abstract betrayals. They were personal. They were documented. And they left marks. The controversies surrounding T. Lee did not happen in a vacuum. They happened to a man who had already been shaped by loss, by incarceration, by legal battles, by the constant pressure of building an empire while navigating a world where trust is always in short supply. Youngboy has spent his entire career in the public eye while simultaneously dealing with situations that would test anyone's faith in the people around them. He was arrested multiple times. He lost people close to him. He watched industry relationships flip on him, and layered on top of all of that were these deeply personal situations involving his own family, his own sister, and the men he had either grown up alongside or personally brought into his world. When the people closest to you become entangled in situations involving your family that feel like violations of everything you stand for, the impact goes deeper than hurt feelings or professional disagreements. It reinforces every suspicion you have ever had about who people really are when the stakes are real. Many fans and observers believe these repeated experiences contributed to the increasingly private and guarded way that Youngboy has approached personal relationships throughout his career. The man who connects so effortlessly with millions of listeners through his music has always been much more selective about who actually gets close to him in real life. And the reasons for that guardedness are not difficult to trace when you know the full story. The broader impact of all of this on Baton Rouge hip-hop is something that the city's rap scene will be processing for a long time. Baton Rouge has produced some of the most raw and emotionally honest rap music of the past 2 decades. From Boosie Badazz to Kevin Gates to NBA Youngboy himself, and the through line connecting all of it is that the music does not separate from the life. What happens in someone's personal world bleeds directly into what they create, who they align with, and who they end up at war with. Personal relationships in that world are never truly separate from the music, from the business, from the politics of the street. What happens in someone's personal life does not stay personal when that person is an artist operating at the level Youngboy operates at. Everything connects. Everything affects everything else. The relationships between Youngboy, G-Money, P. Youngin, and the various members of their respective circles are not just footnotes in some industry drama. They are chapters in the history of a city that has produced some of the most compelling rap music of the past decade. Understanding those chapters means understanding how deeply personal choices can reshape careers, friendships, and the direction of an entire scene. And it means understanding that when Youngboy talks about loyalty in his music, when he references the people who crossed him, the trust that got broken, the price of letting the wrong ones close, he is not speaking in metaphor. He is speaking from specific experience. And some of that experience starts and ends with his own sister. Bringing it all together, T. Lee Golden unexpectedly became connected to multiple defining moments in NBA Youngboy's career, not because she was chasing notoriety, but because personal relationships have a way of finding their way into every corner of a life when that life is as intensely interconnected as Youngboy's has always been. She made choices that were entirely her own, choices any person has every right to make, and the consequences of those choices rippled outward in ways that affected some of the most important relationships in her brother's life. Two different men, two different eras of Youngboy's career, two situations that Youngboy beefed over directly and publicly. One of those beefs ended in death. The other ended in a public falling out inside his own label. And both of them left marks on the story of NBA Youngboy that fans are still reading and still debating years after the events themselves. That is the real legacy of T. Lee's story. Not the embarrassing headlines, not the viral content built around her name, but the undeniable role that her personal life played in shaping some of the most consequential chapters in one of hip-hop's most extraordinary careers. At the end of the day, this is bigger than T. Lee's story alone. It is about what happens when the personal and the professional collide in a world where the stakes are always high and the code that governs relationships is taken more seriously than most people on the outside can understand. Loyalty is not just a value in NBA Youngboy's world. It is the currency that everything runs on. And when that currency is disrupted, the effects are felt across every dimension of life, from the music to the friendships, to the streets to the headlines that keep getting written years after the original events. That is why T. Lee's name keeps coming up every time fans go back to examine the chapters of Youngboy's history that shaped him most deeply. Hip-hop has always been a genre where personal life and public identity cannot be separated, where the experiences that hurt you the most become the verses that connect with the most people, and where the people around you shape your story just as much as you shape it yourself. T. Lee Golden's story is proof of that truth. She is not a villain, and she is not a cautionary tale. She is a human being whose personal relationships happen to intersect with some of the most consequential, most public, and most painful moments in her brother's career. And in a world where everything gets recorded, everything gets posted, and nothing stays quiet for long, that intersection became a story the internet was never going to let go of. And the fact that fans are still talking about it on her 29th birthday says everything about how long the reverberations of broken loyalty last in a world where loyalty is everything. What do you think about the way personal relationships have shaped NBA Youngboy's career and some of his biggest conflicts? Do you think the situations involving T. Lee played a bigger role in these beefs than people give them credit for? Or is the internet blowing the whole thing out of proportion? And do you think Youngboy ever fully moved past what happened with G-Money and P. Youngin? Or are those chapters still sitting with him? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear from you. And if you want to keep up with the stories behind hip-hop's most important moments, the beefs that actually matter, and the people connected to them, make sure you are subscribed and have those notifications turned on, because there's always more to talk about, and we are just getting started.